East Berlin, November 9th, 1989. Evening, Thursday. A woman sits in her living room watching television. The news is on. It's always on. A government spokesman is speaking. Günter Schabowski. She recognizes him vaguely. Another press conference. Another announcement about regulations. He's reading from papers, shuffling them. He looks confused. Then he says something about travel, about borders, about immediately. She leans forward. Did he just say what she thinks he said? She waits for him to correct himself, to clarify, to take it back. He doesn't. The broadcast continues. Other reporters ask questions. Schabowski answers, still uncertain. And she sits there, not celebrating, not crying, not calling anyone. Just waiting for the part where they explain what this actually means, waiting for reality to catch up to the words she just heard. Berlin, November 9th, 1989. By evening, most East Germans are home from work. It's Thursday. A normal Thursday. Cold outside. Dark early, the way November is dark in Berlin. People are in their apartments, making dinner, watching television, doing homework with their children, the routine of a normal evening. For 28 years, the wall has been there, a fact of life, like the weather, like the government, like the way things are. People don't think about it constantly. You don't think about gravity constantly either. It's just there. Some people have relatives in West Berlin. People they haven't seen in decades. Aunts, uncles, cousins who are strangers now. Some people remember before the wall. August 1961. Waking up and the city was cut in half. But most people under 40 don't remember. For them, the wall has always existed. 2 Berlins, 2 Germanys. That's just how it is. In the months leading up to November, things had been unusual. Protests, not huge, but regular. Monday demonstrations in Leipzig. People chanting, "Wir sind das Volk." We are the people. Hungary had opened its border with Austria. Thousands of East Germans went on vacation to Hungary and never came back, crossed into Austria, made it to West Germany. The government seemed uncertain. Erich Honecker, the leader for 18 years, had resigned in October, replaced by Egon Krenz, who promised reforms, somehow. But the wall was still there. No one seriously thought it would open, not this year, not next year. Maybe gradually over decades, maybe never. The idea of the wall simply ending wasn't a thought people entertained. It was too big, too permanent, too fundamental. So on the evening of November 9th, people were living normal lives. A man was repairing a bicycle in his kitchen. A woman was ironing clothes while half watching TV. A family was eating dinner, potatoes, sausage, the usual Thursday meal. No one was expecting anything. The evening news began at 7 p.m. on East German television. Aktuelle Kamera, the main state news program. Formal, predictable, boring, usually. Most people had it on in the background, not really watching, just there like wallpaper. But earlier that day there had been a press conference in East Berlin. An international press conference. Western journalists were there. Eastern journalists. Cameras. Günter Schabowski was speaking. He was a member of the Politburo, a spokesman. Not the leader, but someone official. The press conference was about new travel regulations. For months, the government had been under pressure. People leaving through Hungary, protests growing. They needed to do something. So they drafted new rules about travel permits, about visiting West Germany. Schabowski had been given the documents that morning, told to announce them at the press conference, But no one had briefed him properly. At the press conference, he read through various announcements: economic matters, party business, the usual bureaucratic updates. Then, near the end, a reporter asked, "What about travel to the West?" Schabowski shuffled his papers, found the document about travel regulations. He read it aloud, slowly, uncertainly. The new rules said East German citizens could apply for permission to travel abroad. The applications would be processed quickly. Immediately, in fact. A reporter asked, "When does this take effect?" Schabowski looked at the paper, looked confused. "As far as I know, immediately, without delay." He said it tentatively, like he wasn't sure, like he was guessing. The room went quiet for a second. Then the questions exploded. "Does this mean the wall is open? Can people go through now? No waiting period?" Schabowski, clearly unsure, kept saying variations of, "Yes, as far as I know, immediately." He looked like a man who just said something he didn't fully understand. The press conference ended. Western news agencies immediately ran with the story. East Germany opens borders. East German television took longer. They had to decide how to report this, what it meant, how to frame it. By early evening, they were broadcasting segments from the press conference, and East Germans, in their living rooms, watched Schabowski's confused announcement. People heard travel regulations immediately, without delay. And they tried to understand what that meant. Did it mean you could apply for permission to travel, starting tomorrow, next week? Did it mean the applications would be approved quickly, instead of taking months? Or did it mean something else? One man described his reaction. "I heard him say immediately, but I didn't know what immediately meant. Tomorrow? Next month? I assumed it was bureaucratic language. There would be forms, procedures, eventually." A woman said, "I thought maybe they were relaxing the rules, making it a little easier. But I didn't think you could just go. That wasn't possible." The words were clear, but they felt empty, like hearing a sentence in a language you're learning. Each word makes sense, but together they create a meaning your mind won't accept. People sat in their living rooms, listening to the broadcast, and their brains did what brains do with information that contradicts everything they know. They put it on hold. One woman remembered, "I thought they'll explain. In a minute they'll explain what this actually means, the details, the process." I kept waiting for them to say, "To be clear, this does not mean," but they didn't say that. The broadcast moved on. Other news, other stories, and people were left sitting there, with words floating in the air, words that should mean something, but couldn't. Some people called relatives, friends, neighbors. "Did you just hear that?" "Yes, what does it mean?" "I don't know." No one knew, because knowing would require believing, and believing required your entire understanding of the world to shift, and that doesn't happen in 30 seconds. Here's what made it impossible. For 28 years, the wall had been absolute. You couldn't cross it. You couldn't climb it. You couldn't dig under it. If you tried, you might be shot. People had been shot. Hundreds of people. The wall was guarded. Soldiers, dogs, watchtowers, floodlights. It wasn't a suggestion. It was physics. And now a government spokesman, shuffling papers, looking confused, was saying, "What? That physics had changed? Just like that?" Several East Berliners later described the same image. Trying to make the announcement fit reality was like trying to push two magnets together. Same poles, they just repelled. The information wouldn't stick. Another woman, "I thought, this is a trick, or a test. or a mistake that will be corrected in the morning. Some people turned to Western news, West German television, which you could pick up in parts of East Berlin. Western news was already calling it historic. The wall is open. East Germans can travel freely. But Western news had been wrong before, or exaggerated, or misunderstood. This was probably that. Western media jumping to conclusions, making it bigger than it was. It had to be, because if the wall was actually open, then what? Many people later described trying to complete that thought, and couldn't. The picture wouldn't form. So instead of trying to imagine it, people just waited. They sat on their couches, in their kitchens, at their dining tables, television on, waiting for more information, waiting for the world to reorganize itself into something recognizable. The phone started ringing in some apartments. Did you hear? Yes. Should we? I don't know. No one knew what to do with the information. One woman described calling her sister. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. Neither of us said anything useful. We just kept repeating, "Did you hear?" I heard. What do you think? I don't know. We weren't deciding anything. We were just confirming we'd both heard the same impossible thing. Young people, teenagers, people in their 20s, started to react differently. They didn't have 28 years of the wall imprinted in their nervous system. For them, the impossibility was smaller. Some of them started to think, what if it's true? One young man, 19 years old, described his thought. I thought, even if there's only a 10% chance this is real, I should go check. Because if it's real, and I sit here doing nothing, I'll regret it forever. But his parents told him to wait. Wait until tomorrow. Wait until we know for sure. Don't do anything stupid. And he listened. For a while. Across East Berlin, this same conversation was happening. Young people wanting to go. Older people urging caution. What if it's a trap? What if they're testing who shows up? What if this is how they identify dissidents? Fear and possibility competing. At 8:17 p.m., the first person left their apartment to check. Not to cross, just to see. To walk to the nearest checkpoint and see if anything looked different. By 8:45 p.m., a few dozen people had made the same decision across the city. By 9:03 p.m., enough people were moving toward checkpoints that neighbors noticed. People looking out windows, seeing others walking, wondering, should I go too? The first people arrived at the checkpoints around 9:30 p.m. Not crowds, just individuals, small groups. They approached carefully, uncertain. The guards were still there, in their uniforms, with their guns. Nothing looked different. People stood at a distance, watching. Someone would approach a guard, ask a question. Is it true? Can we cross? The guards didn't know. No one had told them anything. The announcement had been made on television, but no orders had come down through military channels. The guards had the same information as everyone else, a confused press conference, unclear words, and no instructions. One guard described that night. People kept asking me, can we go through? And I didn't know what to tell them. I hadn't received any orders. The wall was still the wall. My job was still to guard it. But people were showing me the television announcement, saying the spokesman said immediately. I didn't know what immediately meant either. So there was a standoff. Not hostile, just unclear. People on one side, guards on the other. Everyone waiting for someone to make a decision. At Bornholmer Strasse checkpoint, a crowd started to grow. By 10 p.m., maybe 100 people. By 10:46 p.m., several hundred. Not aggressive, not chanting. just there, waiting. The commander at Bornholmer Strasse called his superiors. "There are people here, lots of people. They want to cross. What should I do?" His superiors didn't know. They called their superiors. No one knew. Because the decision to open the wall hadn't actually been made. Schabowski had announced something without authorization, without a plan, without procedure. And now reality was trying to catch up to his words. At 11:14 p.m., the commander at Bornholmer Strasse made a decision on his own. He couldn't hold the crowd back much longer. There were too many people. Not enough guards. If he tried to stop them, there could be violence. So he ordered the gates opened. Not because policy had changed, but because he had no other option. People walked through, slowly at first, cautiously, like testing ice on a frozen lake. They crossed into West Berlin, and nothing happened. No one stopped them. No one shot them. They were just through. Other checkpoints saw what happened at Bornholmer Strasse. They started opening too. By midnight, the wall, not the physical structure, but the border, the enforcement, was open. People were crossing. But back in East Berlin, in the apartments, most people still didn't know this. They were still sitting in their living rooms, still waiting for clarification, still holding their disbelief like something solid. One woman described her evening. "I watched the news. I called my mother. We talked about it. Then I went to bed. I didn't think anything would actually happen that night. I thought we'd find out more in the morning." A man said, "I heard people outside, voices, car horns, but I didn't go to the window. I assumed it was unrelated, some other event. I didn't connect it to the announcement, because the announcement still didn't feel real. Even as people were crossing, even as the checkpoints were opening. For those who weren't there, it remained abstract. A broadcast. Words, not reality." The people who went to the wall that night described a specific feeling. Not joy, not immediately. Dislocation. One man who crossed at Bornholmer Strasse, "I walked through the checkpoint. I was in West Berlin, and I felt nothing. Not happy, not relieved, just confused. I kept thinking, this isn't right. This isn't how this works. I'm going to get in trouble." Even after crossing, his body was still operating under the old rules. His feet had carried him across, but his nervous system hadn't updated. Another woman, "I crossed over and just stood there. I didn't know what to do. People were celebrating around me. West Berliners were cheering, offering champagne. But I felt like I was watching it happen to someone else, like I was outside my own body. Some people crossed and immediately came back, not because they had to, but because they didn't know what else to do. They'd proven it was possible, they'd crossed. But now what? One man described this. "I walked to West Berlin, stood there for maybe 10 minutes, then walked back. Someone asked me why I came back. I said, I don't know. I live here. It was the only answer I had." His body had performed an action his mind still couldn't fully accept. So it defaulted to routine. Go home, because that's what you do. Meanwhile, back in East Berlin, more people were hearing about what was happening. Not from television, from neighbors, from phone calls. People are crossing at Bornholmer Strasse. The guards aren't stopping them. It's actually happening. And slowly the information started to feel real. Not because it made sense, but because it was confirmed by too many sources to deny. One woman described getting a phone call at 11:30 p.m. "My friend called. She was out of breath. She said, 'I'm in West Berlin. I just walked through.' And I said, 'No, you're not.' She said, 'I am. I'm standing at a payphone in West Berlin right now.' And I still didn't believe her. But she got dressed, put on a coat, and went to see for herself. By midnight, the streets of East Berlin were filling with people. Not everyone, not even most people, but enough to be visible. People walking toward the wall, toward the checkpoints. Some alone, some in groups, quietly mostly, not celebrating yet. Just going to see, to confirm with their own eyes. Because until you see it, your brain can hold it at arm's length. Keep it theoretical, keep it unreal. One man described walking to the checkpoint. I saw other people walking the same direction. We didn't talk, we just walked. Like we were all going to witness something, but we didn't know what. The crowds at the checkpoints grew, hundreds, then thousands. People crossing both ways, east to west, west to east, West Berliners coming over to see if it was true, East Berliners crossing to prove they could. Someone brought champagne, then more champagne. People started climbing on the wall, standing on top of it, something that would have gotten you killed yesterday. But tonight, no one stopped them. The guards just watched. They were in disbelief too. But here's what's important. Most East Germans weren't there. Most people stayed home, not because they didn't care, because they couldn't make the leap. Or they believed it intellectually, but their bodies wouldn't follow. Or they were afraid. Even if it was true now, who's to say it would be true tomorrow? What if this was temporary? What if they took it back? What if showing up marked you as someone who wanted to leave? One woman described her decision to stay home. I heard what was happening. My neighbor told me she was going to the checkpoint. And I thought, good for her. But I'm not going. Not because I didn't want to see, but because I couldn't make myself believe it was safe. 28 years doesn't disappear in one night. A man said, I waited until morning. I thought if it's still open tomorrow, then it's real. I wasn't going to risk anything based on one chaotic night. Your mind can know something is different, but your body, your habits, your reflexes, your learned caution takes longer to update. Families were split that night, not by the wall, by belief. One person would go, another would stay. Teenagers wanted to go. Parents said no. One family described their argument. The daughter, 17, wanted to go see the wall. The father said, absolutely not. You don't know what this is. Could be a trick. Could be dangerous. The daughter, but people are crossing. Nothing is happening to them. The father, you don't know that. You're hearing rumors. Wait until morning. Wait until it's confirmed. They argued for an hour. Finally, the mother said, let her go. I'll go with her. They went to the checkpoint at midnight, stood in the crowd, watched people cross. The mother described it. I saw people walking through. I saw the guards letting them. I saw West Berliners welcoming them. And I still couldn't make myself cross. My daughter wanted to. She kept saying, let's just walk through, just to say we did. But I couldn't. My feet wouldn't move. Even though I could see it was safe, my body wouldn't believe it. They stood there for 2 hours, watching, then went home, without crossing. This was more common than the images suggest. The famous images, people on the wall, champagne, celebrations, those were real. But they were a minority. Most East Germans experienced that night from a distance, watching on TV, hearing about it from others, waiting to see if it would last. November 10th, 1989. Morning. People woke up, and the first thought for many was, is it still true? They turned on the radio, the television. The news was confirming it. The checkpoints were still open. People had crossed during the night. Thousands of people. No one had been arrested. No one had been shot. It was still happening. And slowly, incrementally, belief started to form. Not a sudden realization, a gradual acceptance. One woman described her morning. "I made coffee. I listened to the radio. They were interviewing people who'd crossed. And I thought, okay, maybe it's real." But I still wasn't sure I believed it. By mid-morning, more people started going to the checkpoints. Not to cross, necessarily, just to see, to witness, to confirm. The crowds grew throughout the day. By afternoon, tens of thousands of people, not chaotic, not panicked, just there, standing near the wall, looking at it, touching it, processing the fact that it was no longer functioning. One man described this. "I went to the wall on Friday afternoon, just stood there. I didn't cross, I didn't climb on it, I just stood there looking at it. And I thought, yesterday this was the edge of the world, today it's just concrete. But I still felt like it was the edge of the world." Your mental map doesn't redraw itself overnight. The world has changed, but your perception is still catching up. Over the following days, more people crossed. Not everyone. Even weeks later, not everyone. Some people never crossed, not out of principle, not out of fear exactly. Just inertia. The wall had defined their world for so long that even when it was gone, the shape it had created remained. One elderly woman was interviewed weeks later. She lived in East Berlin, a 10-minute walk from a checkpoint. The reporter asked, "Have you been to West Berlin yet?" She said, "No." "Why not?" "I don't know, I just haven't." Not defiant, not scared, just she hadn't. Because crossing required reimagining her entire world, and that was exhausting. Easier to just continue living in the world she knew, even if the wall was technically gone. In her mind, the boundary was still there. The days after November 9th were strange. The wall was still standing, the physical structure, but it had stopped functioning as a border. People could cross, but it still looked the same. Guards were still there, but they weren't enforcing anything. Reality and appearance were misaligned. One man described this period. "I'd walk past the wall every day going to work. It looked the same, but everything was different. It felt like one of those optical illusions, where you know what you're seeing, but your brain keeps seeing the old image." The government was in chaos. No one had planned for this. No one had authorized it. Schabowski's announcement had created a reality that no one in power had intended, and now they were trying to manage it. But there was no managing it. The wall was open. You couldn't unopen it. Trying to close it again would cause a revolution, so they just let it happen. East Germans started traveling to West Berlin, to West Germany. Most came back. They had jobs, homes, lives, but they could leave. And that changed everything, even if you never left. Just knowing you could leave changed how you felt about staying. One woman described this. "I went to West Berlin once, walked around for a few hours, came back. I didn't need to go again. I just needed to know I could. That was enough." But for others, it wasn't enough. Some people left and didn't come back. Not immediately, but gradually. Over the following months, people started moving west. Young people mostly. People with skills. People with ambition. The people East Germany needed to keep. The country started to empty. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily. And everyone who stayed could feel it. Year later, the wall was being physically demolished. Piece by piece, segment by segment, People took chunks of it as souvenirs. The world celebrated. But many East Germans felt something more complicated. Not regret that the wall was gone, but disorientation. Their entire lives had been organized around this division, and now it was just gone. One man described watching the wall come down. I felt happy. Of course I felt happy. But I also felt lost. Like someone had erased all the boundaries, and I didn't know where I was anymore. Another woman. I used to know exactly what my life was. I lived in East Berlin. I worked at this factory. I had this apartment. Everything was defined, limited, yes, but defined. Now everything was open, possible, and I didn't know what to do with that. Freedom felt like falling. The wall falling was liberation. Absolutely. But it was also destabilization. Everything people had known, had assumed, had oriented their lives around, was suddenly gone, and they were left standing there, with freedom, and no map for what to do with it. November 9th, 1989. A woman sits in her living room. She hears the announcement. She doesn't believe it. She waits for the correction. It doesn't come. Hours pass, days, weeks. The wall is still there, but it's also gone. She can cross it, but she doesn't. Not because she can't, because crossing it would mean accepting that the world has changed, and she's not ready for that yet. So she sits, holding on to the old reality, even as it dissolves around her. This is how the wall fell. Not with celebration, not with tears, but with disbelief, with waiting, with minds trying to catch up to a world that had already changed. The wall opened on November 9th. But for many people, it took much longer to fall. History remembers the wall falling in one night. But for the people who lived with it, the harder part wasn't crossing it. It was accepting that it no longer defined them. Some are still waiting, still caught between the world that was and the world that is, still holding the moment when the announcement was made, still waiting for the correction that never came.